When most people think of the Old West, they picture dusty duels, outlaw gangs, and rugged cowboys riding into lawless towns. But beneath the legends of gunfights and gold rushes lies a darker, far more chilling truth. Some of the most cold-blooded killers in American history thrived in the shadows of frontier justice. In this video, we'll uncover the deadliest serial killers who stalk the American frontier. Figures so ruthless, their stories still haunt the pages of history. If you love gritty, true tales from the Wild West, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us for more unbelievable stories from America's most lawless era. The Bender family, often referred to by the nickname the Bloody Benders, lived in Labette County, Kansas, during the early 1870s. They became known in historical records for a series of mysterious disappearances that occurred between May 1871 and December 1872. The household was believed to include four individuals: John Bender, his wife, identified in various accounts as Elvira or Elmira, their adult son John Jr., and their daughter Kate. However, some reports from that time, especially in local newspapers, suggested that Kate and John Jr. may not have been siblings at all. Instead, neighbors suspected they might have been a couple, possibly in a common-law relationship. By 1890, two women in Michigan, Elvira Hill and her daughter Sarah Davis, were briefly accused of being the elder Bender woman and her daughter Kate. Authorities ultimately determined that the two were not connected to the Benders and released them after verifying their identities. Investigations into the case led to the estimate that the Benders may have been responsible for the deaths of at least a dozen travelers, with some claims suggesting the number could be closer to 20. These individuals had reportedly stopped at the Bender property and were never seen again. Despite efforts to locate them, the Bender family vanished after suspicions began to mount. Their ultimate fate remains a mystery. Some believe they were quietly captured and killed, while others argue they may have successfully escaped and lived under new identities. Bender family. John Bender Sr. was believed to be about 60 years old at the time he lived in Kansas. He spoke only limited English, and when he did, it was often in a deep, harsh tone that was difficult for others to understand. A newspaper from the Emporia News, dated May 23, 1873, identified him as William Bender, suggesting the possibility of aliases or confusion surrounding his real name. Elvira Bender, also known in some records as Elmira, was thought to be around 55. She reportedly spoke very little English and had a reputation in the community for being cold and unapproachable. Some neighbors even gave her the nickname She-Devil, though this reflects more on the folklore that grew around the family than verified behavior. John Bender Jr., around 25 years old, was described as having auburn hair and a neatly groomed mustache. He spoke English fluently, though with a noticeable German accent. Locals sometimes commented on his odd tendency to laugh at inappropriate times, which led some to question his mental state, though there's no formal diagnosis or evidence to support such claims. Kate Bender, estimated to be about 23 years old, was widely considered attractive and well-spoken, with only a slight accent. She stood out from her family due to her outgoing nature and her interest in spiritualism. Kate advertised herself as both a healer and a medium, distributing flyers that promoted her claimed abilities to cure illness and communicate with the spirit world. She also hosted seances and delivered public lectures, often discussing progressive topics like free love, which was controversial at the time. Her growing popularity made the Bender family's inn a known destination. While the elder Benders largely avoided social interaction, both Kate and John Jr. were known to participate in the local community. They regularly attended Sunday school in nearby Harmony Grove, adding a layer of normalcy to their public image. The family was widely assumed to be of German descent, although their exact origins remain unclear. Historical records have not confirmed the precise relationships between the Benders, or even where they were born. Some reports suggest that John Bender Sr. may have been originally known as John Flickinger and possibly came from Germany, Norway, or the Netherlands, but these claims have been largely discredited. According to newspaper accounts, Elvira Bender may have originally been born Elmira Hill in the Adirondack region. She was said to have married a man named Simon Mark, with whom she reportedly had 12 children. Later, she is believed to have married William Stephen Griffith. There were unproven rumors that she had a complicated personal history, but no verifiable evidence supports claims of wrongdoing. Kate was thought to be her fifth daughter. Neighbors and some local sources speculated that Kate and John Jr. were not siblings, but rather a couple, possibly living as common-law partners. Adding to the confusion, researcher Lee Ralph pointed to a possible family listing in the 1870 census from Decatur, Illinois, where a John, age 53, Mary, age 49, John, age 24, and Catherine, age 13, were recorded. In this census, all family members except Catherine were listed as being born in Germany, with Catherine listed as being born in France. This record may or may not relate to the Bender family, but it reflects the ongoing uncertainty about their true identities, deaths and disappearances. In May of 1871, a man named Jones was found deceased in Drum Creek. His body showed signs of severe head trauma and a throat injury. Although suspicion initially fell on the landowner of the claim where he was found, authorities chose not to pursue legal action. By February 1872, two more men were discovered under similar circumstances with comparable wounds. As time passed, stories of travelers who vanished along this stretch of trail began to spread widely. By 1873, the situation had become so alarming that many people actively avoided traveling through the region altogether. The area already had a rough reputation. It was known as a haven for horse thieves and those with questionable intentions. Vigilance committees, often acting as informal law enforcement, took it upon themselves to detain suspects. However, many of these individuals were soon released due to lack of evidence. At times, even innocent men were driven out of the community simply because they had fallen under suspicion. During the winter of 1872, a man named George Newton Longcourt departed from Independence, Kansas, with his infant daughter, Mary Ann. His goal was to begin a new life in Iowa. Sadly, neither he nor his daughter was ever heard from again. The following spring, Longcourt's former neighbor, Dr. William Henry York, decided to search for them. As he traveled along the same trail, he stopped to speak with homesteaders, hoping to find clues. Dr. York reached Fort Scott and began his return journey to Independence on March 9, 1873, but never completed the trip. Dr. York's disappearance did not go unnoticed. He had two brothers, Ed York, a resident of Fort Scott, and Colonel Alexander M. York, a prominent lawyer, Civil War veteran, and Kansas state senator. Both men were aware of William's travel route and quickly launched a search when he failed to return. Colonel York organized a group of approximately 50 men to investigate. They interviewed travelers and stopped at homesteads along the trail. On March 28, 1873, York and a companion named Mr. Johnson visited the Bender family's inn. Colonel York explained that his brother was missing and asked if the Benders had encountered him. They confirmed that Dr. York had stayed with them and offered the theory that he might have been harmed by Native Americans, a common fear at the time. York considered this a possibility and stayed for dinner. A few days later, on April 3rd, York returned, this time with armed support. A local woman had recently reported a troubling encounter at the Bender Inn, claiming that Elvira Bender had threatened her. During this visit, Elvira appeared unable to speak English, while the younger Benders denied the incident ever happened. However, when York repeated the woman's statement, Elvira reportedly became angry and accused the woman of cursing her coffee. She then ordered the visitors to leave, revealing that her grasp of English was far better than previously suggested. This unexpected outburst cast doubt on her earlier behavior. Before the group left, Kate Bender privately asked Colonel York to return alone the following Friday evening. She offered to use her spiritual abilities to help locate his brother, claiming she could see beyond the natural world. By this point, many in York's party suspected that both the Bender family and their neighbors, the Roaches, might be involved in the disappearances. Some even urged immediate action. However, Colonel York, despite growing suspicions, insisted that a formal investigation and concrete proof were necessary before any judgment could be made. Around this time, tensions were rising in neighboring areas. Some residents began to suggest that members of the local Osage community might be involved in the unexplained disappearances. In response, Osage Township took proactive steps and organized a meeting at the Harmony Grove Schoolhouse to address growing concerns. Roughly 75 people attended, including Colonel Alexander York and, according to some accounts, both John Bender Sr. and John Bender Jr. During the meeting, those present discussed the growing number of missing persons, including Dr. William York. By the end of the gathering, the community agreed to pursue legal warrants to search every homestead located between Big Hill Creek and Drum Creek. Although Colonel York had harbored strong suspicions about the Bender family since his earlier visit, no one had been assigned to watch them. Their absence went unnoticed until days later. Roughly 3 days after the township meeting, a local man named Billy Toll was passing by the Bender property with a group of cattle when he realized that something was off. The house appeared empty, and the animals had clearly been left unattended. Toll informed the township trustee of what he had seen, but poor weather delayed a formal investigation. Once the weather improved, the trustee called for volunteers to help examine the property. Hundreds of locals responded to the call, including Colonel York. When the group arrived at the Bender farmstead, they discovered the house had been vacated. The family's belongings were gone, and the pantry was empty. While inspecting the cabin, a strong odor led the searchers to a sealed trapdoor beneath one of the beds. When opened, it revealed a small room below, about 6 feet deep. The space was stained, and though it was empty, the smell indicated that something had soaked into the ground over time. Believing more might be hidden below, the group broke up the stone flooring and even moved the cabin aside to dig beneath it. But they found nothing further. Attention then shifted outside. Volunteers began carefully probing the nearby garden and orchard with metal rods, focusing on areas where the soil looked recently disturbed. That evening, one of the first discoveries was made. A body later identified as Dr. William York. He had been buried face down just beneath the surface of the earth. The probing continued late into the night, and by midnight, the searchers had marked 9 additional locations believed to contain remains. They paused their work until morning. The following day, more remains were uncovered. 8 individuals in 7 of the marked spots, and another in the property's well, along with other remains. Most of the victims had experienced some form of trauma, and contemporary newspapers noted signs of mistreatment after death. One particularly tragic discovery was that of a young girl whose body showed no outward cause of death. It was later speculated that she may have passed away through suffocation or shock. This deeply troubling scene confirmed the community's worst fears and quickly drew national attention. The Bender family by then had vanished. Following the grim discoveries at the Bender property, tensions among the gathered crowd escalated significantly. According to a Kansas newspaper at the time, emotions ran so high that one onlooker, a man named Brockman, who was believed to be an associate of the Bender family, was confronted by the crowd. He was reportedly restrained, questioned forcefully, and then released after repeated rounds of intense interrogation. Witnesses later said he stumbled away from the scene in a disoriented state, appearing confused or unstable. Inside the abandoned cabin, searchers found a Roman Catholic prayer book containing handwritten notes in German. Translations revealed names and phrases such as Johanna Bender, born July 30th, 1848, and cryptic messages referencing events like Big Slaughter Day, January 8th, and Hell Departed. These cryptic entries only deepened public curiosity and speculation. News of the gruesome discoveries spread rapidly. The Bender homestead became a magnet for onlookers, and it's estimated that over 3,000 people, including reporters from major cities like New York and Chicago, visited the site in the weeks that followed. The house itself was quickly stripped by souvenir seekers. Visitors took everything from furniture to the bricks from the cellar walls, and even stones from the well. In response to the outrage and to prompt further efforts to locate the fugitives, State Senator Alexander York offered a $1,000 reward, a considerable sum at the time. equivalent to over $26,000 today. Soon after, Kansas Governor Thomas A. Osborne increased the incentive, issuing a $2,000 reward, over $52,000 in 2025 dollars, for the capture of all four Bender family members. As investigators pieced together what may have occurred at the Bender residence, a theory emerged regarding the family's method of operation. Guests at the inn were typically invited to sit at a special spot at the dinner table, positioned over a concealed trap door in the floor. With the guest's back turned to a curtain that separated the room, it was believed that Kate Bender would keep the individual engaged in conversation, while either John Bender Sr. or his son quietly approached from behind the curtain to incapacitate them. Afterward, the guest would be discreetly lowered into the cellar through the trap door. Once in the cellar, the individual's belongings were taken, and their remains were eventually interred on the property, many in the orchard behind the house. Although a few victims were known to be carrying money or valuables, several appeared to have had little of worth. This led some to speculate that robbery may not have been the only motivation. There were suggestions that the acts may have been carried out for darker, more personal reasons that remain unknown. Eyewitness accounts from individuals who had once stayed at the Bender's Inn and departed under suspicious or uncomfortable circumstances added support to later theories about how the family may have operated. One guest, William Pickering, reported that he had refused to sit near a curtain that concealed part of the room, noting what he described as suspicious stains. According to his account, Kate Bender reacted aggressively, brandishing a knife and demanding compliance. Sensing danger, Pickering left immediately. His decision to leave may have spared him from harm. Another account came from Father Paul Ponsiglione, a Catholic priest, who stated that he had once visited the Bender Inn. During his stay, he noticed one of the Bender men trying to discreetly hide a heavy hammer. Feeling uneasy, he made an excuse about checking on his horse and left promptly. However, it's worth noting that this testimony was given only after the family's crimes came to light, and thus its reliability has been questioned by some historians. There were also claims that the Benders sold various personal belongings, such as horses, saddles, and clothing, by asserting that some guests who lacked money would leave behind items in lieu of payment. This practice was later seen as an attempt to mask the origins of stolen goods. Another account came from a woman named Mrs. Fitz. While having dinner at the inn, she reportedly became increasingly nervous after sensing movement behind the curtain. When Kate Bender gave what seemed to be a signal or command, Mrs. Fitz acted on instinct and left the premises in a hurry. Two additional guests, men curious about Kate Bender's claimed spiritual abilities, had an experience that added further suspicion. Although they agreed to stay for a meal, they declined to sit near the curtain and instead ate at the front counter. Kate allegedly reacted with hostility, and soon afterward, the male members of the Bender family emerged from behind the curtain. Sensing an unsettling atmosphere, the men chose to leave quickly. In hindsight, this decision may have been critical to their safety. When the inn was later searched, investigators discovered over a dozen bullet holes in the cabin's walls and ceiling. The press at the time speculated that some individuals may have tried to resist or escape during confrontations. These details, while difficult to verify in full, helped shape public understanding of the Benders' operations and contributed to the legend surrounding the family. Escape. Investigators tracking the Bender family eventually found their wagon abandoned near the outskirts of Thayer, about 12 miles north of the inn. The horses had been left without food or care, and one of the mares appeared to be injured. This discovery suggested a hasty and unplanned departure. Records confirmed that the Benders had purchased train tickets on the Leavenworth, Lawrence and Galveston Railroad, with Humboldt as their declared destination. However, at the town of Chanute, John Bender Jr. and Kate reportedly left the train and boarded a different line, the Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad, heading south toward Red River County near Denison, Texas. It was widely believed that the two then made their way to a remote settlement located near the Texas-New Mexico border. At the time, this region was known for harboring fugitives due to its sparse law enforcement presence. Because of the dangers associated with the area, Many officers were reluctant to pursue fugitives across that terrain. One private investigator later claimed to have followed their trail to the border, where he was told that John Jr. had died from what was then referred to as apoplexy, a term historically used for sudden, severe illness, possibly a stroke. Meanwhile, the elder Benders reportedly stayed aboard the train past Humboldt and continued north to Kansas City. There they are believed to have boarded another train bound for St. Louis, Missouri. After that point, their movements became unclear. In the absence of confirmed arrests, numerous vigilante groups emerged, hoping to track down the Benders on their own. Over time, conflicting reports surfaced. One account claimed the family had been located and dealt with through frontier justice, with only Kate surviving briefly. Another story alleged the Benders were captured and their remains disposed of in the Verdigris River. A third version suggested the family perished during a confrontation and were buried in an unmarked area of prairie land. None of these accounts could be verified, and no one ever stepped forward to collect the official $3,000 reward, a sum worth a significant amount even by modern standards. The mystery surrounding the Benders lingered for decades. Over the next 50 years, several women traveling in pairs were accused of being Kate Bender and her mother. These cases never led to any conclusive identification. In 1884, a man identified as John Flickinger reportedly died by suicide in Lake Michigan. Some speculated he was John Bender Sr. That same year, an elderly man matching the elder Bender's description was arrested in Montana in connection with a death that had occurred near Salmon, Idaho. The victim in that case had suffered head trauma, and the method raised suspicion. A message was sent to authorities in Cherryvale, Kansas, asking for confirmation of the suspect's identity. However, before this could be done, the man reportedly injured himself in an attempt to escape his restraints and died from blood loss. By the time a representative from Cherryvale arrived, the condition of the body made visual identification impossible. Nonetheless, the man's skull was displayed in a local establishment in Salmon and claimed to be that of Pa Bender until Prohibition laws shut down the saloon in 1920. After that, the artifact vanished. Whether John Flickinger was in fact John Bender Sr. has never been determined. Victims. When investigators included the unidentified remains recovered from the Bender property, estimates suggested that over 20 individuals may have lost their lives there. Only a few of the victims were ever formally identified and given individual burials. Among them were Alexander Mackenzie and Dr. William York, who were laid to rest in Independence, Kansas. The Longcore family was buried in Montgomery County, and Henry McCrotty was interred in Parsons. The rest of the recovered remains, whose identities could not be confirmed, were respectfully reburied about a mile southeast of the Bender Orchard. This area, one of several burial sites, came to be known as the Bender's Mounds. During the search of the Bender homestead, 3 tools were found inside the cabin: a shoe hammer, a claw hammer, and a small sledgehammer. These items appeared to align with certain markings found on the recovered remains and were kept as evidence. In 1967, the tools were donated to the Bender Museum by the son of Leroy Dick, the local township trustee who had overseen the original investigation. For more than a decade, from 1967 to 1978, the hammers were displayed at the Bender Museum in Cherryvale, Kansas. However, when the museum site was repurposed to build a fire station, the effort to relocate the exhibit sparked public debate. Some community members were uncomfortable with the town being so closely associated with the Bender tragedy. Eventually, the artifacts were transferred to the Cherryvale Museum, where they are now displayed in a secure, wall-mounted case. Another item of interest, a knife with a 4-inch tapered blade, was reportedly discovered inside a mantel clock during the original investigation by Colonel York. In 1923, York's wife donated the knife to the Kansas Museum of History. Though it is not part of the museum's public exhibit, the object remains in the collection and is available for viewing by special request. Notably, the blade still bears faint discoloration that has been preserved for documentation. A roadside historical marker commemorating the events related to the Bender family is located at a rest area near the intersection of U.S. Route 400 and U.S. Route 169, just north of Cherryvale. The marker provides visitors with an overview of the case and its lasting place in Kansas history. The legend of the Bloody Benders is a chilling reminder that the Old West was not just a land of cowboys and lawmen, but also a place where dark secrets festered in the shadows. Their horrifying legacy, marked by ruthless cunning and cold-blooded murders, remains one of the most gruesome chapters in Western history. Even today, the mystery surrounding their fate continues to captivate the imagination and spark debate. If you found this story as haunting as we did, be sure to subscribe to our channel. There's much more to explore from the depths of the Old West. More untold stories, hidden truths, and chilling tales you won't want to miss.